Ahí ya está arrancando ya empezó la grabación.
Vale, me estoy ubicando un poquito mejor. Y creo que la voy a dejar así para
Ok,
no ralentizar
sí.
el computador.
Si quieres, entonces, haz más pequeño a la izquierda la barra de diapositivas. Córrela hacia la izquierda, cógela en la mitad y la corres a la izquierda. Exacto. Y listo. Y
Sí, la
entonces
voy a
ahora
dejar
sí,
así
te
porque
escuchamos.
cada clic es una demora.
Ok, dale.
Bueno, igual la voy a hacer en inglés y si tienen alguna
Perfecto.
pregunta, pues al final está mi correo y algunos datos extra por si quieren ahondar un poco más en la presentación. So I
Súper.
call this presentation Classroom Interaction and its application through a bilingual reading to learn lens, which is the topic that I have explored during the last year. And I will provide you some context of this presentation and the proposal that I have for you today. So first of all, I want to tell you that I'm a teacher. I have been working in the public sector for about 12 years in elementary and secondary. Right now, I'm in charge of the immersion class in third, fourth, and fifth grade. I'm also an in-service teachers trainer. I have been in charge of the training of some teachers that must teach English without knowing the language, particularly in my school, but I have also done some work in some escuelas normales around Colombia. And finally, I'm a doctorate in education candidate, and in my fourth grade year of the doctorate program in education and society at the Universidad de La Salle. My bachelor degree is also from the Universidad de La Salle. At that time was licenciatura en lengua castellana, inglés and francés. And last year, during 2022 and 2023, I was a Fulbrighter. I won a scholarship to conduct my doctoral internship at Florida Atlantic University and St. Mary's University. And that is the reason why I'm sharing with you this proposal with you today. So during the time that I was at Florida Atlantic University, I was able to explore the systemic functional linguistics and genre-based pedagogy, which is kind of one of the lines that I'm exploring right now in terms of research and theory. So that is just a little bit of my background. And the objectives for today, there is a mistake over there. The objectives for today is, first of all, introduce the research application for the bilingual reading to learn literacy in that ESL classroom context. And then we will explore the possibilities and pathways for conducting based on the bilingual reading to learn literacy pedagogy within your own teaching practice context. I know that you are doing and you are currently working, but you are also doing some kind of practice. So that is kind of the focus of this presentation, to provide some insights for you to conduct your own research. The agenda for today is basically three main points. First, I will just give you some kind of glimpse in terms of the theoretical foundations of the proposal, which is systemic functional linguistics and genre-based pedagogy. I will not go in deep with that. I will just mention the theoretical framework for you to take into account, at least for you to have an idea of what I'm talking about and what is the research line that I'm proposing today. After that, I will share with you some kind of the research application I have been working on with Dr. Ramirez, which is my mentor at Florida Atlantic University, and what I have done within the public context, particularly in the school where I'm working right now. Finally, I will suggest you some possible pathways for conducting your own research. So there are some steps that I will share with you, that possibly that you can take into account for conducting your own research. So to start, the theoretical foundation of this proposal is based on the reading to learn, which is a literacy pedagogy based on the genre-based pedagogy and on the systemic functional linguistics. and that is from one of the authors, Holiday. Based on the systemic functional linguistics, it was created the bilingual reading to learn, which is the third generation of the reading to learn program. So this is based on the idea that there are some genres of power that have not been explored for some students, mostly for some vulnerable population. So there are some, just in general terms, there are some genres. I know this is kind of small, but I can share this presentation with you. There are some genres that have been kind of embedded for some students. So the idea is to expose all students, even the ones from vulnerable contexts, to those genres. And those are basically some of the genres proposed by the genre-based pedagogy. So in terms of the multilingual reading to learn or bilingual reading to learn in our context, there are some principles. The first one is that, of course, it is based on the systemic functional linguistics. And the idea with this is to guide our students through a bilingual interaction in the context of a shared experience. And I know that one of the interests that you have to conduct your research is the interaction, that the classroom interaction. So this is a very important point in the bilingual reading to learn pedagogy. The other principle is the gradual increase of the target language. Something that I have critiqued in my own teaching practice is that we end up to a point that we do a lot of different activities, but at the end, some of them doesn't have any objective. So this is very systemic, purposeful. So this is something that we can explore if you consider doing a research, taking into account this lens. And this is basically the last point, that is systematic and purposeful use of the first and foreign language in content and language instruction. Those are the principles. And basically what it is proposed by the bilingual reading to learn and in general reading to learn literacy pedagogy is that there are three main points that you need to conduct when designing a unit or when planning or when conducting a teaching practice, and in our context when you want to teach English. So the first main step is preparing to read. Something that I forgot to mention is that the main uh, instructional material is a text that is based on the models that I just showed you, on the genres that I just showed to you. So based on the text, you need to do a teaching learning cycle that is basically the graphic that you are seeing in here, which is first of all preparing to read. After that, you do some kind of joint construction, and finally individual construction. Maybe this I'm just giving you general ideas. When you do the units, and if you have the opportunity to apply everything, you will make more sense about everything that I'm telling you today. So this is the teaching cycle. These are the three steps: preparing for reading, individual joint construction, and individual construction. You can make this teaching cycle in both English and Spanish, or you can do it if you are teaching English directly in English, which is the bilingual cycle. So I think I didn't put in here. Oh yeah, here. So there are two kinds of conducting this teaching cycle. This one, which is the first one, could be, you can do a monolingual. It means, first of all, in Spanish, and then a bilingual cycle, or you can do it a bilingual only cycle unit. So that I will explain to you later with an example. So, but it is just for you to take into account. So the general part, the main idea of this literacy pedagogy is that you use the whole text at the entry point, just to give or provide your students with some meaning, that is shared with all of them. So in that case, the students are provided with the full text, with the meaning that is accessible for all of them. And based on that, you start kind of deconstructing the text, just starting by the whole text, then by sentences, after that by clauses, phrases, words, and lastly, phonetics. Now this is just general terms. As I told you before, the theory behind that is really big. So there is a need for you to explore this theory in deep. And I think this is something that you will do during this first semester. But this is just a glimpse. It's just to give you an overview of what is the starting point of this proposal. So we are going to the second point, which is the research application within the public context, which is what I have been done in my own teaching practice. As I told you before, I'm an English language teacher in a public school, and I have some experience in both elementary and secondary. So I have conducted this research in both levels. So I will share with you two main research projects that we have been working on together with Florida Atlantic University. So the first, as I told you, is the one that I have been conducting in my own school. And the second one is a project. It is being written, which is going to be held in Santa Rosa de Osos, Antioquia, with 6,000 students, 290 teachers. And the one that I'm conducting in Jan Oriental School is with 6th, 8th, 9th grades in a regular class with 4 students. And the one that I'm conducting now is with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades in the immersion class. I don't know if you are familiar with the immersion class. It is like a specialized classroom just for learning languages. And one of the advantages of this kind of setting is that I just have 20 to 25 students. I have all the conditions to conduct a really good class. I have many resources. So it's kind of, there is a big difference with a regular public classroom. Well, I will start just to share with you some ideas and some of the work that I have been done with the students at Jan Oriental School. So the main question for this research is how can bilingual reading to learn pedagogy be integrated effectively into the suggested English curriculum in Colombia to enhance language acquisition and literacy skills. So something that I want to point out here is that I'm kind of articulating this pedagogy within the suggested curriculum. So I took into account the topics that are in the suggested curriculum, which are medio ambiente, sociedad, comunidad global. What I have forgotten some of them, but I will show you some examples of the units. So this is kind of the methodology design, and probably you can follow these same the stages that I took into account here. So the first stage was the review of the literature and the exploration, of course, of the theoretical framework. So I explored systemic functional linguistics, reading to learn, bilingual reading to learn, and I forgot to mention here that is also multilingual by reading to learn, and another term which is translanguaging pedagogy. In the second stage, I selected the text based on the contents that are provided in the suggested curriculum, and I adapted the text. Sometimes I have to write them following the models that are provided by the genres in the first chart that I show you. And after that, I make and I design some units based on those texts. I will show you some examples later. In the third stage, I just get the consent forms. I did a pre-test. Then I developed the units. Then I did a post-test. And in the same stage, I did a documentary revision, a systematization of the data, a manual coding, and a preliminary report. As I told you before, I conducted this research with 6th, 8th, and 9th grade. With elementary, I'm doing right now. I'm in the process of collecting the data. And finally, the analysis and report, conducting data analysis using a legitimation code theory, which is a theory for a methodology theory for analyzing data, which is really interesting if you want to explore more. And we are writing some reports and socializing some of the preliminary outcomes of this research. This is kind of the text that I apply with 6th grade students, and the topic was local places. If you want to see more about this, you can scan this code, and I have a video in my YouTube channel with one part of the class. So basically, as you can see, there is a text, and based on that text, I developed the whole unit. You can see more in the code that is in there. So that was for 6th grade, and I want to mention that with 6th grade, I conducted a monolingual plus bilingual cycle unit with 1 grade, because I have six 6th grade, two grades for each one. So 6th grade 01 and 602. So with 601, I conducted a monolingual and then a bilingual cycle unit. That means that I first presented the text to my students in Spanish. I developed the whole unit in Spanish, and then I developed the whole unit in English, the same text that is called mirror text. So it is the same text that is translated into English, and I conducted the same unit in English. But with the other grade, with 602, I conducted just a bilingual only cycle unit. That means that I didn't do the unit in Spanish. I just started in English. But the good point in here is that all the explanation is very systematic, and the explanation at some point was all in Spanish, although the text was in English. So in the examples of the videos that I put in here, you can see more, because I think here I want to be more precise. And with 8th grade, I selected a topic that was within the suggested curriculum. I kind of adapted one topic that is restorative justice. With that grade, I also conducted 2 learning cycles. The first one was monolingual, and then the second one was bilingual. So that means, as I told you before, I first presented the text in the Spanish to the students. I conducted all the unit in Spanish, and then I did the same. I used the same text, but in English, that mirror text in English. So that was with 8th grade. And then with 9th grade, the topic in the suggested curriculum was Salud y Vida. And the topic that I selected, the specific topic that I selected for this grade was mental health. And we talk about suicide. And I want to mention that this topic was really controversial at the first time, because I asked some of the members of the school if I could talk about suicide, because there is a very touching topic, and they say that there was something that must be done by the orientation and psychologists, and I say, but like that is there is controversial, but I haven't seen any work being done with those students, so why don't we do it in English? So at the end, they accepted, and I talk about this, and specifically I talk about how to do a protocol to prevent suicide. And this work was presented at Australia last year. I presented this work specifically with this unit to the creators of the theory, and that is something that have never been done before. They were surprised that I was using genre-based pedagogy to talk about suicide within public schools. So in there, you can also see a part of the unit that I implemented with 9th graders. It was really nice. It was really cool. They participated a lot, and the outcome was really interesting. Well, that's part of the work that I did with the school. And as I told you before, the other part of the research is the one that is going to be held at Santa Rosa de Osos, Antioquia, with all the schools and all the students. And what we want to do is to see how prepared our teachers and how prepared they consider they are for teaching English as a foreign language. And what we are going to do is to have a experimental group and a control group. With the experimental group, we will have the teachers to do like a training process for 18 hours in genre-based pedagogy, and then we will get them to implement the theory within their own teaching practices. And the other group, the control group, will be the one that the teacher will have the opportunity to do that training process. And at the end, we will compare, and we will do a bilingual only teaching cycle and also a monolingual bilingual teaching cycle. So we will see how the outcomes vary depending on the teaching cycle that we use. So those are the teaching questions. We don't have any outcomes yet because this is going to be implemented this year and the next one. There is a lot of people involved in there. So there are teachers, governors, some other professors from FAU. And of course, what we want with this is also to get some people and professors and students, why not, from La Salle University within this project, because as you can see, it is really, really big. So, and the last point is I want to present some possible pathways for conducting your own research. So, and I want to share with you this feeling that I had when I started my doctorate program, and that was that feeling of providing my students with equitable access to knowledge, because you know that especially in public schools there are some barriers and there are some conditions that we need to fight and that we need to resist, and that is the main reason why I'm sharing this with you. Specifically because genre-based pedagogy is a calling for justice, especially for the more vulnerable ones. So there is a quote from Freire over there that I want to share with you, which is, the teacher is of course an artist, but being an artist doesn't mean that he or she can make the profile, can shape the students. What the educator does is in teaching is to make it possible for students to become themselves. So what I propose you is these steps, these stages for you to conduct your research. This is just a proposal. As you can see, is kind of similar that the one that I show you with my own teaching practice. So the first thing that you need to do is to get involved and to get familiar with the systemic functional linguistics, and of course with the bilingual reading to learn and translanguage pedagogy. But of course there are so many more fields that you need to explore, like for example the colonization theories. Professor Edgar will know more about this, but this is my suggestions just to start. uh, After that, after you explore and you get like the logic of this literacy pedagogy, the second step is to design the instruments and teaching units. So I suggest you to do 3 cycles, because I know that you will do this in just one semester. So I think 3 cycles will be enough, but you also need to consider that uh, you can conduct the cycles in both ways, in just monolingual and then bilingual, or just bilingual. And that is something you need to consider, because if you do it monolingual and then bilingual, it will take more time. If you do it just bilingual, it will take less time. And the second thing that you need to do within this second stage is the unit designs. And I will give you some more information about the teaching, this first step, which is the selection of the text. So as I told you before, the most important thing for doing this is the selection of model text. And it is really, really hard, and I struggled a lot, because there are no good texts. I mean, I'm not saying that there are some good texts or bad texts, but definitely there are some texts that are better written than others. So the thing that you need to consider is that you need, as the principal instructional material is a text. And you need to do some adaptation, especially because if you want to articulate this pedagogy with the suggested curriculum, there is no material. There are no reading texts that are good enough to conduct this this literacy pedagogy. In fact, what I found is that there are no readings. I mean, reading is a really mm, lack a really bad point within the suggested curriculum, something that needs to have more attention. So you need to consider that uh, when selecting the text or adapting the text or creating the text. So there are key factors for for the selection or adaptation of text. So the first one is that you need to select a test that is challenging for all your students. It doesn't have to be a very easy text. It needs to be challenging for the students. The second thing is that you need to address the students' meaning-making framework. And I will show you some examples of what I mean with this. The third thing is that the text genre should align with the curricular content. And in my particular case, I just selected two kind of genres, which were the description and protocol. And finally, that you can use some tools, like for example, artificial intelligence to adapt or select the text. So that is something that you can do. What I did was just to look for text in the website, then see maybe which one of them could be applicable for my classes, and then I adapted. I used artificial intelligence, and then I did like editing after that. And in terms of this second stage, in the second phase, which is the unit design, you need to know that there are some there is like a framework from a policy framework that we need to resist, but we also need to align with them. It's something that we cannot just avoid. We can align with that, so we need to know which are the topics that we need to cover in the suggested curriculum. And based on that, we can develop our curricular units. So the first thing is to evaluate the curriculum content that is suggested in the suggested curriculum. After that, you need to select the text, the appropriate text. And finally, you need to do some kind of adaptation to the unit. So I will show you just one example. This is one unit that I did, which is about the Frailejón. This is a two learning cycle unit. It means that I first conducted in Spanish and then in English. So I will show you to you. Give me just a second because I sent it to my WhatsApp. And I think I didn't do it. This one. So this is the one unit, I mean, 2 units. This is first, this was first conducted in Spanish. It's going to be conducted because I haven't applied this one. It was first conducted in Spanish. I mean, it's going to be conducted in Spanish and then in English. So as you can see, it has the bilingual teaching cycle. It is articulated with the suggested curriculum, with las mallas de aprendizaje. This is a descriptive report, and the first part is in Spanish. So I will present these texts in Spanish first, and I will follow all the steps that is proposed by the bilingual reading to learn, which are these ones: preparación para la lectura, lectura detallada, toma de notas, construcción conjunta y construcción individual. So everything is in here. I can share this with you if you want. So everything is very specific, and in fact, there are some interactions that are explicit in the unit. I wanted to show you another unit that I have in here, but it is in the other computer. But I can share all this material with you. And this is something you can, if you are going to do some research about this, you can concentrate just in one part of the lesson. You cannot do, I mean, if you want, you can just take into account, for example, the kind of interactions, lectura detallada. Like, for example, here, I will show more to you in here. So in the detailed reading, there are some kind of steps that you need to follow, which, because as I told you, this literacy pedagogy is very systematic, but purposeful, with purpose. So in here, interactions are really, really important. So in here, I just put some interactions of how that could happen. So maybe if you want to do a research just on this part of the unit, that is okay. So it's just kind of my suggestion. So this is the complete monolingual plus bilingual unit. So this is the one that I will do in Spanish. And then there is the same unit in English. So here is the same unit, the same text, everything, but in English. This is what I told you that is called mirror text, which is the same text translated into English. And I will conduct the same unit in English. The only
Julie?
difference with the, dime?
Julie, I guess that your presentation freezes because we are seeing only the one that you have in Spanish, and you were talking
Mm,
now about the one in English, but we are just seeing the one with the Frailejon's picture.
uh, I don't know what happened. Let me see. I don't know. You still seeing the
You can,
first?
if you want, you can stop sharing the screen and
Uh-huh.
then you share the screen once again.
Okay. Mm, what about in here?
Yeah, exactly. Now it goes. Yeah,
Okay.
we are watching what
Okay.
you're talking about. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So this is the second part, which is in English. But as I told you before, you can do both teaching cycles or just the bilingual one. So I could do this, for example, just in English, but then every stage in the unit would be some parts in English, some parts in Spanish. It depends on the context. Like, for example, in here, I just planned this to do it, the explanation in in Spanish, but then the 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 reading is in English. So, for example, in here it says, como lo dije anteriormente, la primera sección de este texto la compone la primera línea. Bueno, ahí hago toda la explicación, but then I read the text in English. So if you want to see more examples of this, you can watch the videos. I want to stop in here because it's long, and this is what you are supposed to do, or what we are intended for you to do. In I guess that would be in this within this semester and the next one, which is first select the text and then to design the units. If you select 3 texts, you have to do 3 units. And of course, what you have to do also is to design all the material for the classes. Like, for example, this is the presentation that I designed for the text that I used for 9th grade, which was about the suicide, as I told you before. So this is just an example of the first class. So, well, this is the presentation that I used, the objectives that I presented to the students, well, the routine and the agenda for those students, well, the rules and everything that is in the class, the evaluation criteria. I started that class with a video about suicide, but it was more about some kind of preventing suicide. And then I presented the text. It is kind of a small, I know, but this unit was bilingual only. I didn't do the unit in Spanish, just in English. But as I told you, the explanation of the unit, I mean, of the text is in Spanish. So that's why it is a gradual release of responsibility. I mean, it's a gradual use of the first language to the second one. So one thing that you can explore in your research is that use. Like, because for example, when I started my job at Secretaría de Educación, and we were kind of supervised by some entities, we were taught not to talk in Spanish. But with this pedagogy, Spanish, and in general, the first language is something really important. But you have to use it with purpose, not in any part of the class. You have to use it a kind of with a very conscious use. So this is just an example of the unit. As I told you, this is the first class. So you have to go through a highlighting process, explanation process. You have to give them, your students, some synonyms of the words. There are many things that you have to do in there. I'm not going to be specific in here with each one of the stages because it's kind of long, and it can be overwhelming at the beginning, I know, because it was what happened to me. But once you get into this into this lens, you find more I mean, you making more sense. Like you say, like for example, at this point, I'm starting the process with my fourth grader students. I cannot do it other way. I mean, I cannot think other way to teach at least this kind of topics. So this is just an example, and well, and yeah, like basically this is kind of what you are what we want you maybe to consider for your research. So, well, these are creo que me pasé un poquito. Okay, this one. These are
Okay.
the kind of things that we need you to consider. If you want to do it in my immersion class or in your own teaching practice, that is okay. You need to consider that you have two data outcomes, the students' outcomes and the transcription of the classes. And yeah, I don't know, I think that's all. I know there is a lot of information, and I try to condense everything. So thank you for your attention, for your patience at the beginning of this presentation, for all the technical problems. If you need more, you need to maybe to more information about this, you can contact me or Dr. Ramirez, which is my mentor from Florida Atlantic University. He is right now writing a book uh, 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 regarding multilingual reading to learn. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, Julie, thank you so much for your presentation. I guess that yeah, now you can turn on your camera. So I have three questions about the presentation just to get more clarity about the study. You were showing us, you are suggesting 3 units for us, and each unit is composed of a number of lessons. How many lessons do you consider should be included per unit?
Okay, there is something that you need to that is what I told you, that I suggest 3 unit cycles, but it depends of the amount of hours that you have of the students have per week. For example,
Mhm.
I have 2 hours per week
Exactly.
with my students, and it took me to implement one teaching cycle, 2 weeks and a half for one teaching cycle for one unit.
Right. So it will be
So
about 3 weeks each unit. So 3
exactly.
lessons each unit. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. My second question is, that like the instruments that you suggest for the study are the students' outcomes from
Mhm,
the reading activities, from the reading to learn activities, and the other one is the classroom transcripts. What is the
mhm.
connection between the two instruments? How the classroom transcripts help understanding the results from the students' outcomes and vice versa?
Okay. Well, I use, for example, my teaching, the students' outcomes from the pre-test and the post-test, just to see how they improve in terms of English. But I consider the classroom recordings because, as you told me that one of the interests of the students is to develop more on classroom interaction. So I think that is only seen through the recordings. And of course, you need to. I mean, when you get the result, when you get the outcome of the students in terms of what they produce, you need to do what was the process. You need to see what was the process that was carried out to get into that final outcome. So you need to see which kind of interactions could be better or facilitated somehow the final outcome of the text. So I think that will be the kind of the link between the two things, like which kind of interactions are are better, can I say that, for
Right.
allowing the students to get a final outcome.
Okay, I suppose so. So my third question is this: there could be two trabajos de grado, one concentrated on the students' outcomes about what they learn from the reading, and
Mhm.
another concentrated on how the interaction like
Exactly.
flows
Uh-huh.
in the implementation of reading to learn. So there could be two at the same from the same
Yes,
study. Okay, right.
exactly.
That was my third question.
Mhm.
Julie, fantastic. I find it so interesting. I took just some screenshots of the
Mhm.
things you were doing because I am preparing an email for the students. Would it be possible? I don't know if I know it is part of your work, it is part of your data. You just give us like a short version or just one unit, the sample of one unit, so that we have it as a sample
Yes,
for the students to say,
sure.
okay, if you want to participate in a study of this kind, so this is the type of lessons where we are going to
Mhm.
design. Obviously, we are not going to take your data. We are going to design our own units, but to
Mhm.
have that model would be just fantastic for us. Only one of the
Sure.
units would be okay. I know
Mhm.
that the file that you were showing us was so extensive, and it is
Mhm.
a lot of work, and we respect also the creation that you had, but we have, if it is possible to have just one of those units, would it be?
Okay. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
okay, fantastic. So now the proposal is there. So I'm going to talk with the students how
Mhm.
to do it if they are really interested in, and they will be in, and I will let you know.
Yeah. If you need more, just contact me. I'm available if you want to do a second talk about this. I'm probably with Dr. Ramirez. That would be great. Yeah. You are not
Great.
alone in this process.
Okay, Julie. Thank you so much. I guess that we will end the meeting. I know that you now go to work. We don't want to take more of your time. Thank you for having the time of presenting
Okay.
everything. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Julie.
you.
I'll
Bye.
be in contact. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye bye. Goodbye, Catalina. Goodbye, Mariana.